soften up the mess. Drop it in the water, let the daughter find her image with the rest. She'll be learning how to breathe, spinning through identity, revealing.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Bougie Faith channel. If you are new here, my name is Elisha. Welcome. If you are a returning Faithie, hey girl, hey. Thank you for coming back and supporting. If you are new here, I talk all things self-care, wellness, lifestyle, faith. I am also a kingdom entrepreneur and a corporate professional. So you will get to see some information on that as well as behind the scenes. So let's get into today's topic. This is something that has been near and dear to my heart for so many reasons. Wellness is a huge thing for me. I have always had a passion for wellness and just taking care of the body. Just a backstory, and if you have watched my Getting to Know Me, my first ever sit down, I believe I mentioned that I was actually going into the medical field. In high school, I had my mindset on nursing, believe it or not. I just always loved just the healing aspect. Like, God has given me the gift of healing, and so that's not by happenstance that I am attracted to wellness at all. It's in my God DNA. So but it just so happened that I did not take that path. I ended up going to school and getting all of my prereqs in nursing, and realized once I started volunteering that I just couldn't stomach it. And so it's so amazing how God allows for you to still use your gifts in different ways. And who knows, maybe in the future, I do see myself kind of doing some more things as far as healing goes, but we will leave that for now. But yeah, so with that being said, by the title of this video, we are going to be diving into Pmdd, which stands for Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder as a Christian. I kind of want to give you some backstory, and then also this will probably be an ongoing series because I am still in a space of learning and developing in this area. And I'm also participating in a PMDD study right now, and I've been able to gain some insight, which I'll also share if we get to that in this video. But it will definitely be some information on that because it has been very informative as well. So let's talk about where this all started. So as a young child, when I first started my cycle, I've always had like just all of the symptoms, right? Don't want to get too graphic, but I remember I would get very sick, just the vomiting, the fever, just all of those things. And I would have to miss like the first 2 days of my cycle. I would have to miss school because I was in the bathroom, I was on the floor, and I was just not able to get through it until after those first 2 days were over. And I remember my mom would always do things for me that were more on the holistic side. And so I would do a lot of the ginger tea, and I would do, the heating pad, and just different things that she would do for me during that time to feel better. And so the moment I was able to get birth control, I got birth control. And it was more so for me to be able to not have my cycle just rule my life, right? So that's what we did. And during that time, there wasn't a lot of information out about birth control. At least my parents, didn't know. Of course, sometimes we kind of just go with what the doctors say, right? Because we trust them and we value their opinion. And so I ended up starting on birth control when I was old enough to, because my cycles were just very challenging and it was taking up a lot of my space. And so that helped me. I ended up going on this brand called Seasonique. I don't know if that's still around, but I ended up going on that brand, and it would allow me to have a cycle every 3 months. And so it kind of gave me a break, and we did that for a bit. And then as I got older and became a legal adult, I ended up trying some other things. Like I went from Seasonique to the Depo shot. That did not do well for me at all. It had a lot of side effects, and I knew right off the bat it was just something I was not going to be able to continue. And so I remember going to my doctor, just telling her the side effects I was feeling and all of those things. And I'm so grateful that I left that alone, because now there's a huge, claim out there around it. And so I'm just grateful that I left that alone, and and moved on from that. And so I went from that to something called the Skyla. And at this time I was, I had already had my daughter. And so I went to the Skyla, and the Skyla was kind of like the Mirena. If you're familiar with the Mirena, I believe the Mirena was like 5 or 7 years where you were able to keep it in your body. But the Skyla was almost like the child to the Mirena, just because it was a lower dosage, and I believe it was only for like 3 years. And so I tried that, and it was okay, but I didn't like the fact that my body was spot, and it was also uncomfortable when they did the procedure. And so I remember just a lot of the pain I felt, which I'm grateful that also now I saw that they are now acknowledging women's pain when it comes to some of these procedures, these IUDs and things that they're doing, because they will tell you, oh, it's not gonna hurt, or this, that, and the third, and then it hurts, okay? And so anyways, we're not gonna get into that. And so finally, after I ended my relationship and God was just calling me into a different direction, I decided to get off all birth control. I had to let it go. I knew that my body just did not like it. My body did not react to it well. I also started to learn about a lot of the long-term side effects, and I just felt like it wasn't the right choice for me. Again, this is all perspective for me. So, you have to take what is going to work for you and, go to God and do those things. I'm not swaying you one way or another way. I'm just sharing like my perspective and what my experience has been. So I told myself I wasn't going to do any more birth control. I was done with it. I wanted to heal my body from the things that I had put in it from birth control, and really just not allow myself to be dependent on that, and also just live a life of abstinence, right? And so I started that process. I remember going to my doctor and just telling them like, hey, I want to get off this birth control. And of course, when you go to the doctor, they want to know why, the reasons, and then they also want to try and influence you to get it again. And I was just like, no, I'm not. And then they look at you when you're there, they look at you and they say, well, what are you going to use? Nothing, because I don't need anything. But anyways, so I ended up going and I had the procedure to take the IUD out. Still, a whole nother procedure. If you've had that happen, you already know how that goes. We're not going to go down that road. And so what I didn't know at the time was that there was a proper way to detox yourself off of birth control. And then also, while you're taking birth control, you need to make sure that you are checking all of your levels in your body and that you are supplementing, because they don't tell you this, but birth control will deplete your body of the things that you need. And so I learned all of this when I decided to leave birth control alone, and my cycles were not going back to regular cycles. I was having a lot of issues with my hormones, and at the time I didn't know that, but now I know that. And so there is a process of taking your body off of it, and then there's a process of also, when you're on it, some of the precautions you should take to just make sure you're okay. So fast forward, I realized my cycles were not going back to what they should be. And so I remember going to the doctor and they told me like, hey, your uterus is like pretty much coated with, the birth control. So even if you decided to want to continue a family or have a family right now, you wouldn't even get pregnant because it's still there. So anyways, I continued on. And then I realized I was starting to have these weird symptoms a week before my cycle. And so if you are someone that deals with PMDD, you already know what I'm talking about. And so there is where PMDD is basically like your PMS, your regular PMS, but like I like to say it's more severe or on steroids. It is a lot more challenging, and the symptoms vary from woman to woman because our bodies are different, our makeups are different. And so I'll kind of share a little bit of the symptoms I had. Now, I will say that this is still a journey I'm unfolding. And as I'm learning and I'm paying attention to my body, I realize there has been so many other things that could have made this worse, and also things I've done in the past that has added to this. So what I know so far is that they have found that PMDD is linked to trauma. They have also found that when your body is going through the different levels and changes in your hormones, from your progesterone to your estrogen and all of these things that happens during the cycle, some of us that have, well, those of us that have challenges with PMDD, it is also said that our brains are reacting to the fluctuations in our hormones, which also triggers the PMDD. So there's so many things that are coming out. Some of these terms may sound new to you. Like we'll get into that, but let's keep going. So I recall this had to been probably, I really started to really notice it, I want to say between 2018 and 2019. I really started to notice, like a week before my cycle, I was not doing well. Like it was hard to get out of bed. I was very irritable. I was very cranky, just, very moody, just all of these things. But I was also still able to kind of plow through it in a sense. Like I knew it was there, but I was plowing through it, right? And so shout out to homegirls that, can help you, and, people that God placed in your life. And so I remember having this conversation with one of my homegirls who works in the pharmacy. She is a pharmacy tech. And I remember talking to her about it, and she's like, Elisha, you need to look into PMDD. And so I was like, okay. And so I started looking into it. I started researching it and everything like that. And I remember going to my doctor, and at the time, I had a different OBGYN than what I have now. And I remember them trying to put me back on birth control, right? And I was like, that's not an option. Like it got to a point where I put in my charts, do not offer me birth control. It's not an option for me. And so I was still just, playing the ropes of trying to get help. A lot of the doctors were wanting me to do birth control, and I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. I'm explaining to them what's going on. I'm tracking my cycles, just all of these things. And then I also remember during that time, because it has been said that SSRIs do help with the PMDD. And so I remember trying one, and I am going to make a disclaimer that there's nothing wrong with medication, but it's also equally important to see what the root causes of the things you're going through, because sometimes it could be your lifestyle, it could be your diet, it could be those things that you may need to address that is making other things act out, right? And our cycles are linked to so many things. So we'll even dive deeper into that too. So anyways, I remember the doctor suggesting I try SSRI, and basically the SSRI, I was going to take like 14 days up to my cycle. So like 2 weeks to my cycle. And at first, when I first got the medication, and this goes back to like just my background in faith, I did not want to take it. I was like, why am I dealing with this? Why am I going through this? Why do I have to take medication for this? And so I ended up getting the prescription filled, but I never took it. Still like just, plowing through it, trying to figure it out. And it goes back to when I was realizing what was going on with my body, and I really got language for it. I really struggled with coming forth with this, because I felt like as a woman of Christ, why am I dealing with this? Like, what is going on? Like, God, I'm serving you. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm, working on honoring the things you have told me to do. But why am I struggling with this? So for a long time, I didn't allow myself to get the help that I needed. And even after the Lord used my homegirl to like kind of tell me to, well, not kind of, but her telling me to look into Pmdd, it did give me some direction, but I still wasn't 100% on board with taking the medication. So I didn't. So fast forward, COVID hits. COVID hits, and I get sick, and my cycle changed. And I was like, okay, something's going on. Like, something's really, really going on. And so at this time, it got to the point where I couldn't fight through it anymore. Like, I was very tired, very sleepy. Like, my body just wanted to sleep. My body just wanted to rest. It wasn't like before where, yes, these symptoms were there, but I was still functional, if that makes sense. This was not functional at all. Like, I literally got to the point where I had to plan everything around my cycle because I was not going to be able to do anything. Like, there was times where I would call out from work or call into work. I couldn't really do much. So you're thinking about it, like if you are someone that has challenges with PMDD, you know that the 2 weeks leading up to your cycle is a lot. It's a challenge. So you think about, I have those 2 weeks that I already know I'm dealing with symptoms, and then my cycle comes and now I still can't be functional. So it was taking a lot of my time, like me really just trying to figure out what is going on, but also give my body what it needs because I couldn't plow through it anymore. And so I ended up having a friend of mine, a social media friend that I met, God bless her. She has since lost her life to cancer. So Portia, my thoughts are always with you because you truly, truly helped me in my health journey. And so I remember connecting with her, and she had shared like some of the things she was going through post-COVID. And I reached out to her and we connected, and I was just sharing with her about just my cycle challenges and things like that. And she recommended for me to see a functional medicine doctor. And that's when everything changed for your girl. So praise God for those people that he puts in place in your life, because I was determined to really see like what was going on with my body. Now, bring it back a little bit. Y'all know that I have mentioned that I love wellness, and if I can heal my body in a more holistic, natural way, that's what I'm going with first, which is why I was a little bit hesitant about taking the medication, because I wanted to see if there was anything else out there that I could do before I went with that option. So I talked to her and she got me on board with a functional medicine doctor that she was seeing out of Connecticut, who also offered virtual appointments. So I got started with her. All of my labs that my primary care doctor was using, and at the time that's not the primary care doctor I have now, but my previous primary care doctor, when I mentioned to him what I was going through, it was a whole just drink water, exercise, eat healthy type of thing. He was really just not trying to look anything deeper than that. But me knowing that I'm a pretty well-rounded, healthy person, for the most part. Like, I take good care of my body. I do have balance. I do have my times to treat myself and things like that. But I know overall, especially throughout my life, I've always been very health conscious about my body. And people that are close to me know that. Like, I was vegan for a certain part of my life. So anyways, she took all of my labs that had already been ran, and she told me where my deficiencies were. And I realized, well, she showed me also that the hormonal tests that I had taken in the past, my hormones needed support. And none of these doctors ever told me that. Like, none of them. And so here I am trying to figure out why I was struggling. And that was the big piece of it, was that my hormones needed support. So I went through everything with her, And I started to see more light at the end of the tunnel, and I started to be able to heal. I also saw a nutritionist where I got to learn about, the best foods for my body. It was so informative. I realized that I was someone that needed certain things that a lot of people tell you not to eat. And I won't go into that on this channel because I know people get very sensitive about things, and what I put in my body is what I put in my body, okay? So, and the funny thing about that is, well, I'm not going to say the funny thing about that, but the amazing thing about that is when you go to a functional medicine doctor and you allow them to run these labs and these tests, they give you a specific plan on what your body needs. It's not against a generic chart where it's putting you up against people that you don't even look like. You guys don't come from the same place. Your bodies are not designed the same way. And so I could also be next to another woman where she may be able to tolerate caffeine. I cannot tolerate caffeine. My body is caffeine sensitive. And so there were so many things that I learned that I shouldn't be having to best support my body. So a few key takeaways from that is that my diet played a huge role in my cycle, my hormones needing support, and then also I needed to supplement some things as well. So I ended up doing some gut testing, got things for that because your gut also plays a role in it. So many different things plays a role. Now, fast forward a little bit, you may not know about this, and you may depending on where you are, but also your histamine levels plays a role in your cycle. And that was something else I learned going through this journey. And there's so much to unlock there as well. Like there's certain foods that are higher in histamine and that are lower in histamine that can activate your histamine levels, which essentially affects your cycle. So there's so many things that kind of go into it that I learned. And so fast forward, I was able to, get some help and some support that I needed. And it was a journey. It was not a overnight thing. And so I'm going to encourage you to always advocate for yourself, always advocate for your body. Find the doctors and the resources that are going to hear you and listen to you and be willing to walk away from the ones that's not. I will leave a doctor quick, especially if I go in there and you trying to play me and tell me nothing's not wrong or this, that, and third. Like, I know my body well enough to know when something needs to be checked. Now, I didn't go to the school you go to, but I know when my body needs to have something checked out or looked into deeper, and that's something I don't play about. So I would definitely encourage you to advocate and find doctors that are willing to listen to you, that are willing to help you, that are willing to guide you, and not willing to dismiss what you are saying. Now, I do love that there's so much more information coming out about this, about women's care, about women's health, because it's very astounding how so many of us are struggling a week or two before our cycle. And I have my theory. I'm not going to put that out here. But I feel that it is linked to some things, because there's so many of us that are recognizing like, hey, we are dealing with this. Like our cycles are literally taking a chunk out of, our months, And so fast forward, I want to get more into the faith aspect of it, that it took me some time to really realize like I needed, not that I needed help, but it was more so like I was struggling with the fact that why was I struggling with this as a woman of faith? And so when I was looking at it from that perspective, it delayed me from getting the help that I needed. And so I kind of fought a lot in silence. I kind of fought a lot not being open about it. And, I've had experiences where some of us are so like, we over spiritualize everything, right? And it's like, it will keep people from going to get the help that they need. And so I'm sharing that because we can pray, we can fast, we can do all of the spiritual things. But there are also things in the natural that we have to do to support those spiritual things, right? And so when I'm telling you to advocate for yourself, don't let anybody just make you dismiss what you're feeling And don't feel like, God doesn't want you to go see a doctor. God doesn't want you to get the help that you need in the form of medication if that's what you need. Always be led by him, because he's going to tell you who to go to. He's going to tell you what to do. And I also want to say, if you need that medication for a little bit, do what you have to do, because some of these things, especially with PMDD, can really have you on edge. It can be a lot. And there are some women that have lost their lives behind it. So I want you to take it serious. And I know that I'm able to talk about this freely because God has allowed me to be able to do so, because he wants me to help other women in this area get the help that they need, and also be able to see that we can heal through this. And so with that being said, like, I really struggled. I was like, man, like, why am I going through this? Why am I facing this? And as I look back on certain things in my life, I have had moments of trauma. And I'm not going to say one trauma is better than another one or anything like that, because trauma is trauma. Whether it was minor or big, it's trauma. But I will say that because I know my body's makeup, and I know how I react to things and how I receive things. And I also know that I was a chronic suppressor. Like, I kept things and I did not want to process in a way out loud, because of just broken trust in the past, and not really having a safe space to do so. And so I want to go into how therapy really helped me a lot with this, because I had a place to talk, I had a place to process, I had a place to truly heal. Because before, I did not heal. I suppressed, I kept it in, and I did a lot of other things, like, working and just doing all of these things. And then when I got to this point in my 30s, and getting sick and going through all of those things, all of this stuff came up. And so I had no choice but to face it and deal with it. And so I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful for my therapist. I'm very thankful for, like I said, my social media friend, Portia, that led me to a functional medicine doctor. And I have just been journeying ever since. I'm currently in a study for PMDD that I'm super excited about. It has been very eye-opening. It has given tools and resources to be able to help you through it. So I'm excited to share those things. But I just wanted to kind of just share like what my experience has been, especially as a woman of Christ. And I just want to encourage you all as women of Christ that if something is going on with your body, it is okay to pray, and it is okay to go to the doctor. It is okay to pray, and it's okay to go see that therapist. It is okay to pray, and it is okay to take care of your body and rest. Like, this is in the Bible. Like, temple care is in the Bible. Moments to be with just God, like Jesus pulled away to pray, that's in the Bible, for you to seek God and just be at rest, right? When God created the world, he rested on the seventh day. So these things are so important for our bodies to function at a optimal place, and for us to do things from a place of excellence, and for us to avoid burnout. And one of the other things I adopted throughout this was cycle syncing. And we'll get into that as well. But I've learned to go with the flow of my body instead of being against it. And there was a point in my life, especially when it came to my cycle, where I would go against my cycle. Like, I just felt like my cycle was just an inconvenience. I just felt like, why are you, I understand why you're here. But I just kind of felt like just so inconvenienced when my cycle would come. And now I honor that about me. I honor that place that God has given me, and I call it like my mandated rest. Like, because I know my body and how it functions, Elisha has to lay down. Elisha has to get her rest. Elisha is not made for hustle culture. Elisha is a self-care queen. So it's not by happenstance that the Lord has shown me through this process you have to go about things a certain way. And so, with that being said, like, I have learned how to cycle sync. I've learned what to give my body during different phases of my cycle so that I can be my best. And I've also have learned to be okay with when the PMDD symptoms come and I need to sit down, I need to sit down. But they get real, and we'll get into that. This is just like some history and some backstory, but we'll get into, because I don't want this video to be too long, but we'll get into some backstory of some of the symptoms that I dealt with and what best helped supported me through that process. And I feel like I also want to get into the ugly of it, because if we're not careful, PMDD can ruin things. Like, there's times where, because you're at such a heightened space in your body where you may be snappy. And if you're snappy and say you're in a relationship or you have children or you're at a job, these things affect that, right? And so we just have to be very careful and very mindful about giving our bodies the support and the love and the care that it needs. And, I look at society and I look at this world, and it's almost like we have made it to where we have to earn rest when God has already given us rest. Like, that is part of the blueprint of our life, like to have rest and to rest, right? So anyways, I'm gonna stop here because I can go on and on and on, but I just wanted to give you some backstory and just how I was able to get the help that I needed, but also just my journey with it and how I was not okay with it, because I was not. And I just remember I'll share this really quick and then we'll leave. I remember maybe a summer or two ago, I remember I was working from home and it had hit me so bad. And this is what I mean, like, when I talk about when I will talk about how your environment and all of these things play a role in your cycle and how you're going to feel and how you're going to show up. And so you have to be very, very cautious about what you are supplying yourself in your environment, who you are around, because all of these things affect you. And at the time, I was at such a draining job that had a lot of warfare going on, and it just amplified my cycle problems. And I was just I was waiting for God to release me from that assignment. And I saw a huge change in my body when my body was actually able to rest a little bit more, because I was no longer in that environment. But I remember just those 2 summers ago, just being at my desk and working from home, and I was struggling. Like, I had broke down crying. And one of the ladies that I am connected with on social media, shout out to Auntie Nicole, she is older than me and she deals with it. And I remember just reaching out to her and just confiding in her and just crying. And she just helped me so much. And so from that moment on, I was like, I'm going to commit to not really agreeing with it, because I feel like when we agree with things, it's like there's no like we are coming into agreement with this thing being in our life and staying in our life. So I don't like to say that I agree with it, but it was more of I accepted what was going on, but I also knew that I could heal from this, right? And so once I was able to accept it, I was able to see it in a different light and not allow it to beat me up too much. So that's basically what I'm saying. So I definitely didn't want to come in agreement with it, because I feel like when you agree with something, it's with you. And that's not something I want to do. I don't do that with any type of illness or anything that I'm facing, because we want our bodies to we want to speak well of our bodies. We want to speak well of our temples. And so we don't want to come in full agreements with diagnosis and things like that. Yes, we want to acknowledge that, hey, something is going on with our body, but we know that with the word of God, we are healed. And our bodies are whole and our bodies are well. And so that's what I mean when I say I didn't want to come into agreement with it, but I was able to accept that, hey, this is what's going on, and let me stop fighting against it and get the help that I need. And from there, it just took off. So I started to really be mindful of my schedule, really cut out the things that was overwhelming me and bringing me a lot of stress and all of those things, which we'll get into. So with that being said, I wanted to just introduce you to what my story and journey has been through PMDD as a Christian woman, and going through like what it has been for me. It was not easy, but I just thank God for his healing, and I thank God for all of the things that has come out of this, because now I'm able to help and encourage and inspire other women. And I want to say, if you are, I do want to add this in this video, and I'll add it in the other one too, but I do want to say, if you are getting your blood work checked, you always want to get a full lipid panel. You want to see everything that's going on in your body, especially your vitamin D levels. We as melanated women have lower vitamin D, and we have to be very careful with that, because vitamin D is linked to our immune systems. It's linked to how our immune systems will operate, and it's linked to how we're more prone to get sick. It's also linked to how our bodies fight off sickness. It's also linked to anxiety and depression and all of these things. So that's why I'm telling you that it's so important, before you agree with these diagnoses and you agree with taking a medication, to take it a step further, because it may just be that your body is depleted in one area and you need to get it up so you don't feel depressed or anxiety or whatever else it is. But all right, y'all, I'm gonna wrap this video up. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys being here. I hope that you have learned something. And if you are a woman that is struggling with PMDD or any cycle related issues, I am with you, girl, and I am praying with you for healing. But I'm also praying that you will take care of yourself and you will advocate for yourself. So until next time, I'll see y'all. Bye.